Good evening and welcome into the Pacers Podcast Show. I'm Kyle Newman, your host.
And I'm Rhett Hensley, your co-host.
We have a great lineup for the next hour. We will discuss if the Pacers should trade up in the draft, talk about if Paul George will be a Pacer for life, like Reggie Miller was, chat about the 20th anniversary of Reggie's 8 points in 9 seconds, and talk about if George Hill will be more of a leader for Indiana next year than Paul George. Rhett, 12th Pacers Podcast Show, 3 months in. It's a beautiful thing. We're together. You came down to visit me, co-host, and we are doing this show together for the first time. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing perfect. Looking forward to it. Glad to be down here in the Western Kentucky area.
Absolutely.
It's a good one.
Hey, Bowling Green, Kentucky, great area. Great to have you here. Although, you're being a little humble, Rhett, because you're not feeling so well. Because we played a little basketball ourselves earlier, and you got injured.
I got a little injured. On the old ankle. Did it again. So we'll see how she turns out.
Paul George, if you're listening, fans, it happens in basketball. But he's a trooper, and he's doing the show. We're ready to talk Pacers basketball. So let's get into this first segment, Rhett. Should the Pacers trade up in the draft? I want to ask you first to see what you think. What do you think about that idea?
First of all, I'm kind of torn on the situation for the simple fact that the Pacers have the 11th pick, more than likely, in the NBA draft. And who would they get rid of? Well, probably Roy Hibbert to trade up in the draft. So I'm thinking that if they did, I would want at least a top 4 pick in the draft.
Well, let me tell you about this, and I understand that, and I agree. Let's give a little background on the draft, just how it works, okay? So of the 30 teams in the NBA, 16 make the playoffs, and the other 14 are in the lottery, unless the team has traded its draft pick. So the NBA formula gives the greatest chance of winning the top pick to the worst team in the lottery, and the smallest chance to the best team in the lottery. So, and it's according to each team's regular season record. Now, the lottery is used to select which teams get the first 3 picks in the draft. Then the other 11 teams that qualified for the lottery are placed in the draft in reverse order of their winning percentage, with the worst teams drafting ahead of the better teams. Rhett mentioned it, the Pacers got the 11th pick. So, it is worth mentioning, there is a chance that the Indiana Pacers could get the number 1 pick, but it's not a very good chance. 0.08%. That's 8/100ths of a chance to get the pick. Most likely will not.
So you're saying there's a chance.
I am. But then, so that's the background on it. But the key here for me is, okay, they're in a good spot at 11. We agree they need a big man. They need to take a big man. I like Frank Kaminsky, but here's the thing. A lot of the draft and the analysts with the mock drafts have Frank Kaminsky down at 16 to Boston. Now, in that case, I would say, well, because that's who I like and think the Pacers should try and get, then they shouldn't try and trade up in the draft. But there are some other big men that are in the top 10 that are notable that the Pacers may be interested in trying to trade up. Let's mention a few of them. Right ahead of Indiana at Miami, a lot of analysts are predicting Willie Cauley-Stein to go to the Heat. I don't care for Willie Cauley-Stein. I don't think that would be a great pick. Trey Lyles at number 9. You have players like the number 1 pick being projected. It's close, but Karl Anthony Towns right now, and then Jahlil Okafor going number 2. So you have some big men. And there's also a big man from Latvia. So there's a few there, Rhett. But the chances aren't great that the Pacers could get into the top 3 and trade up. So what I think is they're fine at 11, and I think you got to go with trying to get the big man in Frank Kaminsky. Make the 5 spots work, because I really like that. They're projecting Cameron Payne at 14, Miles Turner At number 13 to Phoenix. I know you liked Miles Turner.
Yes.
So, and then right now, we talked about that. I don't agree about it. Indiana, a lot of predictions that Kelly Oubre, the small forward from Kansas, is who the Pacers will take, and I don't think that would be a good pick. What do you think?
I don't think it'd be a good pick. 'Cause like we have talked about before, we need a big man. We're set when it comes to a small forward, from what I believe. We have Solomon Hill as a backup, Paul George as a starter, obviously. So I think that the two areas that need to be worked on are the big men and the point guard spot. So I think those are the two areas that need to be hit on the most. And I believe you agree on that.
I definitely agree on that. It's interesting. So when you talk about trading up, well, you have to look at the Pacers' needs, and if they can make a big man that they want right around that area, they may not need to trade up.
Here's the thing. I don't see anybody that's really up there that I think that they need right now. I think that, like we're talking about, you want Frank Kaminsky. I think Miles Turner would be a good one. Those people are projected to go behind the Indiana Pacers.
Exactly.
So I don't see a need to really try and get a higher pick, really to get one. I don't think we need a small forward or a shooting guard. I mean, if we could get like D'Angelo Russell or something, that wouldn't be too bad. But the chances of that are very, very slim. So what I think, either the big man Roy Hibbert needs to opt out or look for a trade in the offseason and don't trade up for a draft pick.
Exactly. The key here to me is the Pacers getting that right player that they need, and they need a big man. That is very clear, and I think they are in a good position. The key thing is, does the management agree with us in that? Are they agreeing that it needs to be a big man? If so, are they okay with, all right, is it Kaminsky on there? Is it Lyles? Is it Cauley Stein? We've seen some articles with some interest in those players. They wouldn't have to trade up much if it's those Kentucky players. So it's interesting to me to see how that would play out. But I think why this kind of comes up with Indiana. They have let the fan base down in past years with draft picks. They've not done a good job, and when they have, Plumlee, a.k.a., they get rid of them.
Yes.
Management's made some bad decisions when it comes to the draft, and I think that's where this comes up, where this draft is so important for Indiana. Trading up, if that's what it took for the Pacers to get that right player, so this is not a bust, then that's what it takes. So that's where I ask you, Rhett, are you in that same fan base scenario where this is so important of a draft that if it takes them trading up to get that big man, then that's what it takes?
Yeah, I still don't think that there's no big man up in the, above the top 10 that we really, the two chances of us getting, Okafor or Towns is pretty slim. And those are the only two people that I have in mind that I'd like to see be in an Indiana Pacers uniform. But anybody else, I don't see that we really need other than Trey Lyles, and I think that he'd be a good pickup. But you like Frank Kaminsky, and I like Miles Turner, so I think we are pretty on the same page on that one.
I agree. So the order is going to be key. So will the lottery play out like it should? And most years it doesn't. A.k.a. Cleveland getting lucky again last year. The chances are there. You never know if it will play out and where the players will land. But I found something interesting online. In the past 20 years, number 11 picks in the draft have not been very successful. Only one player in the last 20 years actually was an all-star, and that's Klay Thompson at the number 11 pick. Other than that, there hasn't been one all-star since. the average number of seasons is 4. And so I think you look at that number, and if the Pacers land the 11th pick, that's where they are. It's a crucial pick for them. There's some pressure there because this is a big draft.
Yeah.
This offseason is huge. They really need to make that right pick.
This
right?
is something, since the Indiana Pacers are expected to be a lot better than they were this year. I think that this is very crucial to get a good solid pick out of this. So, they're not going to get another opportunity to have another 11th pick more than likely in the next few years, as I'm projecting. So, I think this is very crucial, Kyle.
I do too. And here's another interesting thing. In this article, there was also some stats broken down on using the same 20-year model. They broke down the picks 6 through 10. So if the Pacers look to try and trade up through there, and in some similar ways, the 6th and the 8th pick are as unreliable as the 11th pick. Only a half of the picks in about 6.5 seasons was the average for players with the 6th pick. Only about half of them were All-Stars. 8th pick, no All-Stars. And it doesn't get much better at the 10th pick and the 7th pick. So, really, it's just a thing, as opposed to the top 5 picks have really had some success. Almost averaging between 2 and 3 All-Stars and about 9 seasons for those picks in the top 5. So, trading up, you have to think, is intriguing to the Pacers to get that player, but then again, you have to think that they've been preparing, they've been watching these players closely. I have a feeling that they know who they want to try and get. And if it's a player that is being projected to be in the top 10, I think the Indiana Pacers will do what they have to try and trade up. If it's not, if they are interested in a guy like Frank Kaminsky like me, then they won't have to trade up, but they'll have to be in negotiations. That's for sure, because if Kaminsky is projected 5 picks behind Indiana's spot, that's going to create some interesting order scenarios there. So I guess we will see how it goes, but a very important draft. And to kind of get a timeline of the dates, right now the NBA draft combine is going on. Next Tuesday is the NBA draft lottery. June 15th is the early entry withdrawal deadline, and June 25th is the NBA draft. So we're not far from a month away from the NBA draft. And meanwhile, the Pacers are trying to think about their offseason, Rhett. So
yes,
it is a big draft.
Yes, it sure is.
So, all right. Well, that kind of does it for that segment. Let's kind of transition into this next one. This ought to be a good one, Rhett. Will Paul George be a Pacer for life like Reggie Miller was? I'm curious to what you have to say about this. What do you think?
Well, there are a lot of factors that go into this.
Factors, huh?
Yes.
We talking math?
Yes.
Factoring?
Yes, the factor tree.
You don't like math?
I hate math. But, as I see it, it all depends whether... as Danny Granger, I thought, he was more than likely going to be a Pacer for life. But that didn't happen. So, really, I think it depends how injury-prone he gets throughout his career. And really, it's very crucial to see how he comes back from his injury in this upcoming season. Because that is one thing that is going to be very big for the Indiana Pacers. And his future with the Indiana Pacers could be, hanging in that aspect too, if he doesn't pan out like he was playing in years before. So I think it really, really depends. I would like to see him in Indiana Pacers for life. I do believe he's going to come back better than ever. So, I would like to see it.
Well, let's just say this. It is worth mentioning. He last year signed a 5-year contract. He's taking up $70 million of the Pacers' salary cap over the next 5 years. So he's locked in for 5 more.
Yeah.
And by that time, he'll be what, 10 years into the NBA? So you have to think there's a good chance he will. I'm going to keep it simple. He will. Paul George will be an Indiana Pacer for life. I think he believes in it. I think he believes in Reggie. I think he believes in what Reggie did, and I think he admired Reggie being that one superstar for the Pacers that will always be remembered, and he stayed his whole career there. And I think that intrigues Paul George.
As you say that, I do believe that Paul George will give the Indiana Pacers their first NBA championship. But it's still.
We got a prediction here. Write it down.
It's still hanging in if he's going to be a Pacers for life. I think that he wants to be a Pacers for life, but really, there's probably a lot of players that wanted to stay with the team, and management decided not to. So, it's really, as I see it, not up to him. It's up to management.
Right, and what it comes down to, I guess, is where it would come up to be in his decision in his hands would be when his contract's up. Does he decide to stay or go elsewhere? And I think that
should he stay or should he go?
That's right. Well, I think that it'll depend. I think he will be a loyal man to this team. Now, having said that, I also think he is a man that will want to win. And he has been successful here, and I think that might play into it. How do the Pacers... it kind of goes along with how big the draft is this offseason. Getting the pieces around him to not take a step back, but to keep going forward. This was a team that went to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 straight years, battled the Miami Heat, battled the Chicago Bulls the last 4 years in the playoffs. This team was a top team in the East, and I think that is very intriguing to Paul George. He wants that. Now, the question is, will he get that? Will the pieces stay here? This offseason's big. I think it will. Here's the thing also about Paul George. Minus this last injury this past year, he's been healthy. And, that kind of is similar to Reggie Miller. Reggie Miller had a relatively healthy career. So health plays a big factor too. Can he stay healthy while he's at Indiana? You mentioned it. Can he lead this team if the pieces are in the right place? Can he lead them to a championship?
He sure can.
I believe it because
Write it down.
Write it down. That's a key to both of us, and as it should be, because you want to win, and he's a superstar. I think he'll come back and improve that. But you got to have that edge. You want to keep advancing, and I think Indiana will do that. So winning a championship, that plays a factor. The success is a key. But I just don't see Paul George. Let's say the Pacers in the next 5 years have a couple more good years of Eastern Conference Finals show up, but you can't get over that hump again, and then they miss the playoffs on one of the years, or they get to the semifinals. I see Paul George renewing his contract, staying here, because I think he will be faithful to this team, to this city. And that's the next thing that I wanted to get to with you, Rhett. Reggie Miller was beloved by the Pacers fans. Minus when they not when they first drafted him. Minus when they first drafted him, because they were so mad they didn't take the Hoosier himself, Steve Alford. But
thank goodness.
Right. But they grew to love him, and Indiana really embraced Reggie Miller. And you know what? I'm sure that had a lot to play into Reggie Miller spending his whole career in Indiana. And I want to draw the parallel with Paul George, Rhett. I see Paul George approaching that same level of belovedness with Indiana in the city that Reggie Miller had. What do you think about that?
I agree. I think that, him and Reggie, he wants to be better than Reggie. I do think that he will, at the end of his career, if he stays an Indiana Pacer, he will be the all-time leading scorer for the Indiana Pacers and scoring throughout his career. And I believe that he will give them a championship. So I think that he does want to be like Reggie in one aspect, and he wants to be better than Reggie. So we will see, and I'm looking forward to seeing if he will be at Indiana Pacers for life.
I look forward to that as well, and here's what I see. I see Paul George come back from his injury against the Heat and gets a standing ovation that was unbelievable, that would give you cold chills.
It did.
He even said that he felt the love in the return, that he felt embraced, and this city is behind him. And when the season ended, there were statements on, "Thank you, Pacers fans, for supporting us through the up and down times this year." So the Pacers fans love this man. He comes back, the place sells out. It's against the Heat. I think that this city, and he's very involved with the community, which you can touch on that, because what did he just do in the community, Rhett?
Oh, yeah, he gave...
For a sweet girl.
He gave a girl with cerebral palsy a $10,000 donation so she can get herself a chairlift for her van.
It's just incredible. That's the type of genuine man that he is. And it's acts like that the community relations aspects of Paul George and the city of Indianapolis really gel well together. And I see them just growing, Paul George and the city, the fan base. Us as Pacers fans, we love Paul George. You get that same sentimental feeling with him that you had with Reggie.
Yeah, and the thing, let me take it back to the donation to the girl.
Please.
He was very humble about it. He just donated it. He didn't have to have a ceremony, as I would say for Russell Westbrook did a few weeks ago. He didn't have to have it on camera. They asked for his help, and he went out and gave it to him. Did ask for nothing, no media attention. He just did it online, made the donation, and what a great thing that was.
It really was, and it's just a testimony to the man that he is and his relationship with the city, and that's why I think that he will stay in Indiana. I think he will be a Pacer for life. I think that he's going to continue to carry this team and be a superstar. I see him getting back to all-star form. I see him in the future getting an MVP, and I see him leading the Indiana Pacers to a championship. Oh. And I know you said that you do too. And
it's bold, and it is true, I believe.
It is. And here's the thing. Just to look at his numbers, all right? On his career, he averages 15 points per game. Few assists per game, 6 rebounds per game. Pretty decent numbers. He was out this whole year, and if it wasn't for this injury this year, I fully believe he would have brought those numbers up into the low 20s. That average would have gone up. Paul George is that special of a player. Rhett, he's a guy that, much like Reggie, just kept improving throughout his years and stayed healthy, kept elevating his game, and I see Paul George doing that. And I see the fan base embracing it, and I see him loving that, and I see him staying in Indiana. And I think that the other key thing is I think he gets along with everybody in the Pacers organization. That's the teammates, that's the coaching staff, top management, and that's a key as well. Yes, you have to have that team chemistry.
Yes, he's very involved. And as you saw when he was out with his injury, he was interning for the Indiana Pacers. He took a different role. He was over there working with the stat people, and he was learning the whole thing over there, and that's great because it looks like he wants to be like Reggie and maybe be a broadcaster after his career is over. So we will see.
Yes, we will, and yeah, wouldn't that be interesting?
Sure
because
would.
I think he would be a great broadcaster.
It would. Great.
It really would. So it's one of those things. Paul George, Reggie Miller, the comparisons. I really do think that he's interested in being a Pacer for life, like Reggie Miller was. So I guess we will see about it. We can certainly hope for it.
No kidding.
I wouldn't want to see him in any other uniform.
I know. It kind of like Lance Stevenson. it still irks me.
Lance Stevenson. You can't get over that, can you?
Sir Lancelot really just irks me.
You can't get over that.
I cannot get over that. Him and Paul George were my favorite on the team, and he let me down. He let me down, that's for sure.
Yeah, and and back to Paul George, and it kind of goes to what we were saying though, but his fifth year this year out in the league, I think he's established himself as that rising star. He's established himself as the face of the Pacers in the 21st century. What do you think about that?
I think that is true. Now he's got to continue that.
That's true. We talk about this, but hopefully he comes back to prove that right.
Yeah, don't make us look silly, George. So, I think that he will. He's just got to come back. I think he's going to be working hard in the offseason, and he's going to be working with Team USA, and he's going to get over that fear of dunking and coming down on his leg. So I think it's gonna help. He's got to work on not just on that leg that he broke. He's got to work on every part of his body, because I would say just like Derrick Rose, I feel like he worked on one part of his body more than the other, and that's why he injured his other leg. So I think that instead of focusing on one thing, you need to be working on all of them.
I agree, and I think we get the sense that he is so determined to do that because he already, as soon as the season ended, ready to get on the grind in the off-season. I did win a fishing tournament, but hey, he has to have a little bit of leisure time because I'm sure besides that, he's probably spending the rest of the week preparing in the gym, and I expect him...
no, he's actually in the Bassmaster regional championship.
So another exception with the fishing tournament?
I was just kidding, actually. I have no clue. I think he probably is working out.
Okay, well, Rhett got me. How about him? He's a sly guy. Well, he is, and he was determined to get back to work, looked forward to the off-season, and that's when you know a man is determined, when the season just ended so close to making the playoffs, and you're ready to get back on the grind, and you're determined more than ever to come back next year and to be better than you have ever been. With the injury that he endured, it's just unbelievable.
It's just great. I love it.
I love it too. We will see, but we stated there. Let's get the final summary of it. Right? I believe he will be a Pacer for life. You believe?
I believe that he will.
So
I will put it out there. I believe he will, and I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. We both believe it. All right, let's transition right into the next segment here, and let's chat about the 20th anniversary of Reggie's 8 points in 9 seconds. Just last Thursday, 20 years ago, this amazing feat by Reggie Miller happened, Rhett. I want to get your take on it first, kind of with the first question about it. What do you remember about it so much? And I guess before I get into that, it was a 6-point game, a quick summary of a 6-point game. Reggie Miller hits a three and then steals the ball and doesn't go for the two. The clutch man that he is, he steps back and he takes the three again and he ties the game. And then the Pacers foul John Starks, not meaning to, but he chokes and he misses them both because he was thinking about the whole time, did this dude just did this, as he stated. And yes, he did. So then, after he misses both of them, Reggie, with the rebound, gets fouled. They foul Reggie Miller, one of the most clutch free throw shooters, nonetheless, of all time. 90%, he nails them. And he scores his 8 points in 9 seconds. And the Pacers beat the New York Knicks. What do you remember most about it, Red?
Well, first, I was still in my mama's tummy.
Yes, you were.
So I was a few months off from being born. So as I was a kid growing up, as a big basketball fan, that is something that I would watch. I'd look back on because I was into watching reruns of old games and stuff like that. So it was something that I remember as a kid looking and watching and wishing that I could do something like that. And
I believe I can fly.
I know, I just like Michael Jordan in that Space Jam. I used to.
I believe I
used to
can
try-
touch the sky.
I used to try and run and jump at the goal singing that song.
I think about it every night and day. Spread my wings and fly away. I believe I can fly. Oh, I love it.
Oh yeah, it's a great one, Kyle. Great one.
Absolutely.
But one thing that I would like to touch on with this Reggie Miller situation,
20th anniversary.
20th anniversary, 8 points in 9 seconds. He's not impressed with it. That's one thing that he stated.
Fans are. You're
Fans
right.
are.
But he said that he isn't 20 years ago. I think it's Reggie being humble Reggie now. Because certainly back then he was impressed about it.
Yeah.
But what exactly
yeah.
is he saying?
He said that running out of the tunnel at Market Square Arena, hearing the roars of the Indiana Pacers faithful, the crowd chants, Reggie, Reggie.
It's a great chant.
Echoing through the stands. It's just an amazing feeling that he felt. And, not only that, going to other arenas and him just getting that boo, that is just something that really caught his attention throughout his basketball career. And what a great thing that he remembers. And, there's nothing better than somebody just chanting your name as you're killing it on the basketball court, or as you're walking out to get you pumped up before the game. There's nothing like it, and he loves it, and that's why that's one of his most memorable moments.
It really is, and you talked about how you weren't even born yet, but
I wasn't.
But looking back now, I mean, it's like you were there.
Yeah,
you wish you were there.
I wish I was there,
because it's incredible. And what I remember most about it is the way that it went down. Just vintage Reggie. Of course, now I was only 2 years old, so
a toddler.
I could barely dribble a Pacers basketball.
Yeah, I still can't.
Wow, he went there. Yeah, but just the way that it went down, looking back now, it's true. Like, you feel in as many games as we've been to, it's like, wow, I can just envision it happening when we see it played on the Jumbotron and Reggie going crazy, the fans stunned at Madison Square Garden. It's like you were there, and you really wish you were.
That dude just did that.
Did that dude just did this? I mean, it's along the lines of that John Starks was thinking about while he's at the free throw line, but it's incredible. It's incredible to me the way that Reggie Miller individually brought this Pacers team back. I can't believe, to hit the three, fine, you're down 3. But then to maybe give a little shove, to get open, to steal the ball, and then to have the presence of mind to not go and get the layup and cut it to 1. No. To trust your clutchness and to step back and take the 3 to tie the game. And he knew it. That's the other favorite part that I remember. As soon as he takes the shot, he knew he hit it. He's doing his little dance. Like it felt good. It was just one of those shots where it's just crisp. You know what I'm talking about, Rhett?
Yeah,
one of those
I
shots
do.
Where, you had it today, but unfortunately you rolled your ankle when you came down.
It is a crispy one.
Yeah, but it's one of those where you just know you made it, and he's dancing, he knew it. He tied the game. And the fans, meanwhile, that left, idiots, the game's not over, it's tied. Yeah, John Starks going to the free throw line, misses them. Reggie Miller going back to the free throw line. To win the game, and just could have made them with his eyes closed because he's such a clutch free throw shooter, 90% in his career, unbelievable. So that's what I remember. I remember the other thing, being in Madison Square Garden against the rival Knicks, that this took place.
The Knickerbockers.
It's unbelievable. That just adds to it. Looking at Spike Lee, like, yeah, that's right, you're my biggest rival. John Starks is next there. The Knicks are then third. And it happened here. Take that. And at the end of the game, John Starks choked. We won the game. What can I say? It's just classic Reggie, and I just remember that, and I can relate to it now. If I were to see Paul George do that against one of our rivals today, the Bulls, the Cavs, the Knicks now, it's incredible. If I were to see some, I would remember that it happened against our rival. Stuck it to him. That's what Reggie Miller did.
I wouldn't call the Cavs our rival yet.
We talked about that last week, but you know what? I agree. So, but it'll be either way. I would remember that and I remember that on this 20th anniversary of it, about it happening the way it did. Reggie Miller, vintage. The game's never over. It's incredible. And so that's what I remember most, individual performances. But that's what I want to ask you next here, Rhett. Will something this spectacular ever happen again?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't.
Why?
Because it's one of a kind. That's in one separate category from everybody else. You have people that score 80 points, 60 points, even 100 points. I think that's in a different category.
Because that's individual performances.
Yes.
Not comeback wins in spectacular fashion that no one's ever done.
By one player.
Exactly.
So that's in a different category for me. So I think that Reggie is at the top of that list, and I don't think there's nothing that close to something that's Reggie's done. Like you've said before, Kyle, Tracy McGrady.
Tracy McGrady, I think, is the only performance that comes to mind that could be even considered in the conversation. Tracy McGrady scored 13 points in 33 seconds against the Spurs several years back. It was incredible. He took the team on his back. Great comeback. But that's still second to me, Rhett, because Reggie's, in the way that it happened, 8 points in 9 seconds. He turned the game around and won it by himself in a way that we've never seen before. And I don't think we'll ever see it again. I think it's one of a kind. I think it'll stand alone. I think that we will continue to see incredible team comebacks. Again, you were talking about the categories. That's another category. Teams come back all the time. There have been plenty of comebacks in the playoffs here. But the individual comeback performance, as spectacular as Tracy McGrady's was not more spectacular than Reggie Miller's. I think it is one of a kind. It will stand alone. I don't think it will ever happen again, right? And I agree with you. People who make the comparisons, well, there's been a lot of great individual performances. Kobe Bryant scored 81 in a game against the Raptors. Wilt Chamberlain scored 100. LeBron scored 50+. He's hit 2 game-winning threes in the playoffs. All of this, you remember that? It's different. It's not an individual comeback performance in spectacular fashion that you look at and you're like, oh my gosh, did that just happen? Like, I left wanting to go get some dinner in downtown New York City because the game's over and we're happy, and then we lost? How did that happen? You remember that. Okay, plenty of players score.
People felt like an idiot.
Yeah, exactly. Plenty of players score 40, 50 points. Yeah, it's not like it's very common. It happens, though. Players hit game winners. Exactly. It's rare that players score 81 like Kobe did and Wilt Chamberlain 100. That's a great individual performance, but that's not a spectacular comeback performance. It's different. Yes. So I agree with you in that category. So I think everybody else who is commenting and trying to compare those, it's just ridiculous.
I agree. It's ridiculous. Shouldn't
it's asinine, as Stephen A. would say.
Yes, him and his funky words. So
I love it.
He has
a great vocabulary.
Like they said, he has on his phone an app, a word of the day. So it is something that is going to go down in history as one of the greats, especially for the Pacers. Nothing will probably ever top that, but he's going to live with that for the rest of his life.
He really will. I want to say this, though, because I think what helps me remember this 20th anniversary so much, and every time I think about it, like, what do you think Reggie's best performance was? When I think about the 8 points in 9 seconds, I think about the 30 for 30 film, Reggie versus the Knicks. If anybody doesn't know about these films are great. They're 30 films over 30 years, and now there's more. There's new volumes covering athletes and stories and spectacular sport moments, teams, whatever. And one in particular is my favorite one, Reggie versus the Knicks. If you haven't seen it, Pacers fans, you have to check it out. It'll give you goosebumps. absolutely phenomenal film. Really just shines the light on Reggie Miller and his spectacular career and his spectacular game that he had against the Knicks in this 8 points in 9 seconds. And it shows everything from his interview after the game. This is what I love. He's interviewed after the game. John Starks choked. We won the game. What can I say? I mean, it's beautiful things like that. It's to put one of the most clutch players on the line to close the game out. He could have done it with his eyes closed. That is who you want to be on the line. That's who you want to shine in that moment to win the game.
Like a diamond.
Exactly. That's what you want. And this film does a great job of showing it. Does a great job of showing Reggie's antics after the game. Everybody's stunned in Madison Square Garden. Just phenomenal. And then the commentary. Everybody's like... And then the courage to not take the 2, to cut it to 1, but to step back and take the 3. It takes huge guts, and he did it, and I love that.
It takes a pair of kahunas.
Exactly, and the film does a great job. I remember that about it. I love it. I could watch it a million times. It's one of the greatest 30 for 30 films in my mind. Number 1 because of Reggie. Number 1, but it's amazing at showing that every time I see it. This 20th anniversary of this past Thursday just really brought it to my mind. I wanted to watch it again. Why not? And I could watch it over and over. Great film. So check it out. But Rhett, I want to ask you another question here. Have a little fun. There was a little challenge with fans, a little game on social media, a little fun that they were having. They wanted to say, well, Reggie Miller can score 8 points in 9 seconds. What can you do on this 20th anniversary? They wanted to get some feedback from fans, so I want to ask you, Rhett, what can you do in 9 seconds?
Oh, buddy, I can hit a 3-pointer and fall on my ankle and about break it. That's something that I can do.
Oh, you poor guy, you truly can. Honestly, folks, he took the 3. It was beautiful. He made it. But he fell. When he came down, he landed on the defender who was guarding him way too closely. I mean, you probably smelt his breath. It was probably awful, huh?
Yeah, it wasn't great.
I mean, then he rolled it bad, and then he blanked out, and he was on the court. And that was all in a matter of 9 seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not a joke. Poor Rhett. But it's true. So you can do that in 9 seconds. I'll tell you what. I can poop in 9 seconds.
Well,
a lot of people don't believe it, but when I say I have to go to the bathroom or something, I'm here at the house, they thought that I may have just peed. I come out, it's like, oh, I had the spray, sorry. Wait, you pooped? Yeah, in 9 seconds. Pop, lock, and drop it, and I'm out, Rhett.
Well,
I can poop faster than I can pee sometimes.
I might have to take that as a challenge, big guy.
Oh, is
buddy.
that right? Are you saying that that's not something you can do? Can you not poop in 9 seconds?
Oh, I can poop in 5 seconds.
Wow.
That is something that I can do.
See, impressive. You just don't waste any time. There's no reading a magazine. Spend 30 minutes there, have breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
No kidding.
I mean, it's something that you just get it done. I can do that in 9 seconds, but Rhett, when I think about a lot of things, there's not much I can do. I can't score 8 points in 9 seconds.
No,
that's for darn
you
sure.
Can't score 8 points in 10 minutes.
Exactly. You know what? I can't even make a putt in 9 seconds, and I'm talking about like by the time that I take with my little ritual, because I like to analyze, I like to visualize and attack, and I like to make sure that I can make the putt.
Oh man, if we're talking about that, it takes you about 45 minutes just to drink your cup of coffee.
Oh,
and if we're having breakfast, then about an hour and a half.
Right.
So,
hey, good point. It takes me more than 9 seconds to stir my coffee. So, Reggie Miller, what you did, it's incredible. But there's just not a lot of things, Rhett. I mean, 9 seconds is not a lot of time. I can't even read a paragraph in 9 seconds.
I can't read.
Oh, you're taking a shot at yourself. Wow. But that's funny. It is, Rhett. I appreciate it. It's good humor, but true. Not a lot of things can be done in 9 seconds, so I had to really think about it. Like, I can't even wash my hands in 9 seconds, because ladies and gentlemen, I like to wash my hands, and I like to at least sing happy birthday twice, because I'll tell you what, I like to have my hands spotless and clean. No, running them under the water is just not going to get it done. You have to actually dig under your fingernails, wash around. You know what I'm talking about, Rhett?
I do. I love it. I love it.
You got to clean those hands. That takes me...
Germaphobes going at it.
Absolutely. That is why I can't do that in 9 seconds. So when I start to think about it, well, shoot, there's not much I can do in 9 seconds.
No
Reggie
kidding.
Miller, you've got the edge.
No kidding.
The ultimate closing to a game, spectacular performance, just unbelievable. Reggie Miller, you did it again. So we look back on this 20th anniversary and we appreciate what you did. Pacers fans, great performance, one of a kind, won't be seen again. We both agree with that.
Yes.
All right, well, let's get into this last segment here, Rhett. And let's talk about if George Hill will be more of a leader for Indiana next year than Paul George. Tell me, what do you think?
Well, I'll take the lead on this one, Kyle, as you are giving it to me.
Okay, hey, I'll piggyback off of that.
All right.
And kind of give my own spin on it.
Sounds good. So I think that it's, basically, here's how I see it. If Paul George doesn't come back to superstar material, George Hill's going to have to step in that role, take care of business, and get the job done. So that is something that is going to have to be done. Paul George is going to need to come back and take over, as I think he should and will do. But it's really all dependent on how Paul George is going to do. If he's healthy, he's going to come back and be the leader. And then, you got George Hill that's going to come off as a co-leader. And, he's going to take more shots, obviously. Coach Vogel sees that, and he's going to make sure that he exploits that area. So it's going to be something that's going to be done, and it's going to be great.
All right, well, here's my take on it. I agree with you.
Oh, you do?
We're in the same boat.
We're in the same category.
On the same river. Listen, Rhett. I'll keep it simple. George Hill will not be more of a leader for this team than Paul George if the healthy Paul George we know and love is back in full force. That is my key. Another key, but not the key to him being the leader, is if he is not in the main point guard role, the one spot. I think if he's in the two spot, the shooting guard that he is, because he's proven it, that will also play a big role. So Stuckey, does he move into the one spot? Donald Sloan as a backup, do they give him more time? Or do the Pacers pick somebody up in the draft, or do they go after somebody in the offseason here to bring in that true point guard to allow Hill to have that role is a key to me, Rhett. But if Paul George is not back and fully healthy, I think he will be the leader of this team. He was the leader of this team this year, and he had career-high numbers in points per game, 16, assists, 5, and rebounds, 4. So, Rhett, it was proven, given the ball more, Lance Stevenson gone, Paul George on the sidelines, he showed what he's capable of doing when he is a shoot-first type of a player.
Yes.
And that's what he brings. And I think that he will bring that leadership. Also, I think that what makes a big difference is last summer he worked out with this guy on the team, the trainer, Mike DiBenedetto. He said he worked with him. He did a good job with me, really working out every day, working on my game. He said he was the key. He really stayed on me all summer, not letting me take days off, not letting me settle. He pushed me every day. And that transitioned from the off season into the season on the court. And it was a career year for him, Rhett. And I think that is what George Hill will bring, and Paul George will benefit from. If he's not fully healthy, or it's still taking a little time playing in game form, well, you got another nice leader here, a veteran who can kind of take over. And we've talked about this before, but Paul George is not a selfish basketball player, and he also is one that I think will gel just fine with George Hill.
Exactly. I think he will too. Those two, they can finish out games, and they can get the job done when it comes to game time decisions. So really, if they needed to, Paul George getting doubled up, I would put the ball in George Hill's hands, because both of them can finish a game.
Yeah,
and
George Hill
can be a leader.
Has had at least 3 game winners in his career. Had at least one this year.
Now let me reference this back to One Tree Hill.
Oh, One Tree Hill, he loves
Nathan
it.
Nathan and Lucas. Lucas is the co-leader of the team. Nathan is the big hot shot. That's how I see it with the Indiana Pacers. You got Paul George being Nathan and George Hill being Lucas. Now, George Hill's hair is matching Lucas's now. But,
which we'll get to in just a little bit.
But, I do put them in that category. They are great players when it comes to finishing out a game. So, either of them will do great.
Well, here's the thing. Not only did George Hill's individual numbers improve this year, but so did the team when he was available to play. Rhett, Hill played in about half of the Pacers games, 43 this year, and they won 60% of the games. 26-17 was their record. He was a difference maker. He led this team and really was the reason, if the Pacers could have beaten the Grizzlies, would have been the reason they got to the playoffs. He led this team, and he can do that. And with Paul George back, healthy fully or not next year, I see him doing it again. He says, I'm going to do the same thing this year, work with him, his trainer, Mike, all summer, and hopefully take my game from where it is now to another level.
It's great.
That is what I like to hear right there. Immediately wanting to work on his game, being determined to come back to the field house and for the fans and for everybody in this organization and to lead this team, do whatever it takes, to be the scoring machine that he can be. The Pacers are going to need that. They've been in the top in the East the past several years because of that and the leadership and the team chemistry, and that's what it's going to take for them to get back to the top in the East this next year, Red.
No kidding.
It really will. So I really see George Hill being the leader, but if Paul George is healthy, he will be the main leader of this team. But I think would be just fine with trusting George Hill as, hey, I can have the ball at the end of the game in my hands, but you know what? So can you. So if I'm double teamed, here you go, hit the shot big time.
Exactly.
I think that's what's going. I kind of see playing out is they really gel well together. They both are leaders, so I can see it going either way. It'll just kind of depend on Paul George's health. But Paul George is the superstar. I think that if he comes back and proves that, which we both believe he will, it will mean good things for the Pacers. The next big thing is to make sure they put the pieces around them this offseason, Rhett, to allow that to happen.
No kidding. I think that's a big thing. So the pieces have to be put together, and I think that they'll gel well together.
I agree with that. We're both on the same page. Very key. George Hill, Paul George will be ready to go after this offseason to work. Now, Red, it is worth mentioning here that George Hill does not look the same.
He does not.
He's trying out his Dennis Rodman look. He's dyed his hair blonde. What do you think about it?
I think it doesn't look too bad.
It's a little weird. It's
different.
It kind of, when I first saw it, I'm not gonna lie, I saw a white Eminem.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I saw Eminem.
I saw the parallel. Yeah, I saw a black Eminem, and it wouldn't surprise me if maybe he reached out to him and like, hey, you know what? Try something new here. If he was in touch, or it's just. Sometimes you have to mix it up.
Yes,
and you know what? It kind of is going to match the team colors. It might bring good luck. He might wear a gold headband.
Yeah.
You never know.
Might not be able to see it, but, still.
That's right. So I think it's interesting. When you first saw it, what'd you think? Were you like, oh my, George Hill, what do you think?
I didn't notice him. My friend tagged me in a picture with him, and that is something that I did not expect. That was definitely a shocker to me. But he does look like a young Chris Brown.
Yeah, he does, and it's interesting. It just goes along with him making his own change this offseason. He's deciding to just change up his hair. Why not? And the thing is, he says, time for a change. He's going to try the blonde look for a sec. On Instagram, he posts the picture, and you know what else I like? He says, keep negative comments on your own page. Blocks will be in full effect. It's his off season. He's going to be free.
It's great.
Why not, right? And I kind of like what I saw in an article on Bleacher Report. It's by Dan Carson. It's really funny. He states, "Hey, man, do what you want to do. Dye your hair and go cliff diving off St. Bart's. Don a mustache and sell beef churros out of a food truck." And that's just it's very true. Why not? He deserves it. He led this team this year, and they were so close. And you know what? You got to have a little time to switch something up. Take some time to go to the barber shop. It's getting hot out there. He's spending so much time in the gym. He's hot in there. You got to have a nice hairstyle. So yeah, I really like it, Rhett, and I think that if he has it come this fall, that'll mean good things.
No kidding. It's big things for the off season, not just dyeing his hair.
Exactly, that's right. So George Hill, we both are on the same page with this. If Paul George is back and healthy, then Paul George will be the main leader of this team. But if he isn't, then George Hill will be. And it will be very interesting to see how that plays out. And hopefully Paul George is back and healthy, and hopefully he is the leader and the superstar of this team, back to MVP form, vintage Paul George that we want to see. But if he isn't right away, you got the veteran George Hill. And that means good things for the Indiana Pacers. So we will leave it there. The show is up. An hour, Rhett. Can you believe it? It flies
Crazy.
by.
Yeah, too much fun at one time.
Exactly. Talking Pacers is so much fun that the time flies by. It's like Stephen A. and Skip Bayless on First Take. They have such a great time. Their show goes by like that, 2 hours.
Even though Skip about gives old Stephen A. Smith a heart attack sometimes.
He does. They seem to disagree often.
They do disagree.
And we don't disagree very often.
We don't.
And that's okay. But you know what? On future shows, we will have some segments, ladies and gentlemen, where we may disagree. And if we do, we'll get into a debate.
It will be a debate, and I will win because I am good at debating.
It's cockiness like this that Rhett has that he takes to the basketball court, much like Reggie Miller. And you know what? Sometimes it bodes well for him, and other times he rolls his ankle. So, I don't know. Maybe he gets what he deserves.
Oh, no, I don't get what I deserve. Poor me.
Poor me. That's his response. Well, that's all right. Why not? So, that is all that we have for tonight's show. So, to recap what was talked about, we discussed if the Pacers should trade up in the draft. We talked about if Paul George will be a Pacer for life, like Reggie Miller was. We chatted about the 20th anniversary of Reggie's 8 points in 9 seconds, and talked about if George Hill will be more of a leader for Indiana next year than Paul George. That is all we have for tonight. Thank you for tuning into our show. Feel free to leave any comments, tweet and retweet the show at Kyle M. Newman and at Rhett Hensley and at Indiana Pacers Talk. We value comments and feedback. If we get some, we will address them on the show. It will add to it. So please respond to us. Conversations. We will be back at it next Wednesday at 8 Eastern Time. I'm Kyle Newman.
And I'm Rhett Hensley.
Have a good night. Go Pacers.
And go Pacers.